from the Environmental Advisory Council of Pasadena. We have Wes Reutemann, who's a Pasadena 100 person, is one of the very active people in active San Gabriel Valley. I see Assemblyman Harabidian's aide de camp. Please stand up a minute. He sends greetings from Assemblyman Harabidian. I think I'm probably leaving people out. Danny Parker, who's a longstanding community member. Dr. Sanford Krasner, who's the chairperson of the Citizens Climate Lobby. So many members of the church here. Sam Burnt. How could I leave Sam out? We have Elise, who's with Just Trouble. Just Trouble? Good Trouble? Yeah, Good Trouble. Just good trouble, the best kind of trouble. And then last but not least, I don't want to leave out the First Lady of this church, Melinda Campbell. Please stand up, Melinda, and let everybody see your beautiful self. Yeah. Okay. I'm now going to turn this over to Larry Campbell, who is the pastor of this wonderful, vibrant church, for a few words, and then we'll go on to Ben Jealous.
Good morning, everyone. Out of the love and respect and admiration that we have in this community, before I get into speaking or saying anything, I wonder if you just join me in bowing your heads and just meditating and reflecting and praying, if you will, for those who have lost their homes and some have lost their lives. So if we just bow our heads for a minute just to reflect on them. My name is Reverend Dr. Larry Campbell. I am the senior pastor of First AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Pasadena. I also serve as the president of the Interdenominational Minister Alliance of Greater Pasadena. That's about 26 African American churches of all different denominations that come together to be concerned about the social, economical, spiritual, and environmental needs of African Americans in our community. And so, on behalf of our beloved congregation this morning, who remains a vital part of our community, has been for the last 138 years, we welcome you to our church. In the wake of the recent wildfires that have significantly impacted our beloved communities of Pasadena and Altadena, it is critical that we not only focus on recovery, but also emphasize the urgent need to address climate change in our rebuilding efforts. The path to recovery presents a unique opportunity to transform Pasadena and Altadena into models for climate-conscious rebuilding. As we address the aftermath of the wildfires, let us resolve to rebuild not only back better, but also smarter, with a commitment to the environment and future generations. As a pastor, I am guided by the principles that caring for creation is an integral part of our faith. Let us take inspiration from the teachings of love and stewardship, embracing the role of being good caretakers of God's earth. Without a shadow of a doubt, community solidarity is crucial in the fight against climate change. By collaborating with organizations like the Sierra Club and Pasadena 100, we can amplify our collective efforts and ensure that our voices are heard. Together, my brothers and sisters, we can promote sustainable practices, advocate for eco-friendly policies, and foster an environment whereby every member of our community can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Campbell. I'm now going to introduce Ben Jealous. He's somebody who's difficult to introduce. He is the Sierra Club's leader. You probably know, most of you know, I think that the Sierra Club is 3.5 million members in the United States. The Sierra Club has been, thanks to Morgan Goodwin, who's sitting right here. Please stand up also, Morgan. He's the Angeles chapter director. The Sierra Club has been part of the Pasadena 100 Coalition since it started. I can remember in my earliest stirrings of consciousness about environmental issues, it was always the Sierra Club that made me aware, that made me think about what nature means and how it's completely connected to our spiritual lives and our human lives. So to have the president, the head of the Sierra Club, come here to Pasadena, it means so much to me, and I think it means so much to all of us. Ben Jealous is a civil rights leader. He's an environmental leader. He was the president of the NAACP nationwide. He ran for governor of Maryland and won the Democratic primary. Unfortunately, didn't win the election, but things are not over yet. We need leaders like him. So I'm very delighted to introduce him. We've just been on a, if you can call it a tour, we've just been driving around the scenes of devastation, and I know he was deeply affected. So let me turn the mic over to him. There will be time for Q&A after he speaks. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just hear it for Cynthia Kennedy, please? Great. What a great neighbor, a great leader in this community. Thank you. And Pastor Campbell, thank you. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for your leadership and for really standing strong to try to hold a community together, literally in a firestorm and the aftermath. Thank you. I want to say good morning to my NAACP family, my Divine Nine family. My grandma was a Delta, 1936 Virginia State. I'm a Kappa. And I really want to express deep appreciation for the Sierra Club and this community. It's an honor to be here with Morgan Goodwin, who leads us in Los Angeles County, and Ginny Binstock, who leads us in California. Ginny, can you stand up so folks can see you? Yeah. And I want to thank all the activists in this community who hang together to keep Pasadena, to keep California and our country moving in the right direction in very tough times. Seeing how the President of the United States treated the mayor of Los Angeles the other day was shameful. This is a time when all of us need to center the grieving and the struggles of the folks who were impacted by this fire. I grew up in Monterey, California, went to school in Seaside. Seaside, like Altadena, built by the Great Migration, place people came to dealing with redlining and everything else to try to create their own little bit of heaven, live in harmony with other people, live in harmony with nature. And when you grow up in a community like that, you understand just how fragile those communities are and have become. In the last 30 years, we've seen black folks migrate out, working class folks generally migrate out, housing prices, values surge, taxes go up. In this moment, Sierra Club, like everybody else, is very much focused on, just how can we support our neighbors. And Sierra Club really is a movement of neighbors. We're in 600 communities across this country. Been around since 1892. When I started the NAACP's Climate Justice Program 16 years ago, I only gave one order, if you will, as the head of the NAACP to the new Climate Justice Committee chairs, which was go find the local Sierra Club. Because they're the two organizations that are kind of everywhere. And so right now, as neighbors, folks are very much focused on how do we help neighbors stabilize in this moment, move forward in this moment. And yet, as the pastor and I were talking about earlier, even as we focus on the short-term needs, we got to keep the long-term in mind. For those of us who grew up in the black church, we understand that Adam's commandment was to defend the garden, protect the garden, nurture the garden, and the garden right now is out of balance in a profound way. And I gotta say, I'm still a bit stunned. When you grow up in communities on the edge of nature, on the edge of the wilderness. You know, you got some neighbors who live kind of up in the wilderness, and they're at greater risk of fire hazard. But if you just live just in town, you feel like you're protected from that. It's not really so much of a thought. That's something that happens up there where there's grasses and, you know, it's kind of more wild than residential. And so to drive through those areas that were just, in, you know, where I grew up in Northern California, we would have fires in the forest next door. People lived in the forest, you know, they'd come into town and we'd all support them, but we lived in town. And so to drive through the town of Altadena and to see stores that were impacted and homes that were impacted, and the embers skipped over these three. Like, I'm still processing all of what you guys have been dealing with. 58 families in this one congregation losing their homes. So excuse me if I'm not at my articulate best, but it's literally because I'm just trying to absorb what you're dealing with. But what I can tell you is this about the long term. What the city of Pasadena did as your neighbor 2 years ago, to say that it was going to move to 100% clean energy, I think we all recognize is what's necessary to preserve the garden. We need every community doing that. But we also put it in this perspective. Because Pasadena also has had a thriving black community and working class community more generally, where just like Altadena, you got folks trying to figure out how to hold on to the family home. You know, it transfers from one generation to the next, the taxes go up, and all the marginal costs become important. And what the fossil fuel industry doesn't want you to know is that clean energy, we're also talking about the cheapest form of energy, the most resilient form of energy. I just came from West Virginia, where folks saw their energy prices surge 30% in a month in many communities across West Virginia. Because that state has isolated itself, because it's a coal state, from clean energy. And here's something else the gas industry doesn't want you to know, and their new spokesperson, in Lee Zeldin, the EPA chief, who lied to this country the other day in Congress. He said, oh, because we will produce more gas, prices will go down. Now, that's what we were taught about capitalism. I understand the logic he's trying, but let me tell you the reality. The reality is this: every other continent on Earth will pay more for fossil fuel than we do here. So when they say they're producing more, they're producing to export. When they connect our market to the international market, prices go up because we normalize with the rest of the world. And so in West Virginia, prices surge 30% because they're exporting so much coal to China. Real talk. Real talk. Now the people in West Virginia are competing to burn coal with the Chinese market that will pay more for it. So you know what? They got to pay more too, just to hold on to it. So when we hear saying 100% clean energy, yes, we're talking about what to do for the garden, but we're also talking about how to help families that are just barely hanging on, where every marginal cost matters, plug in to the cheapest and most resilient form of energy that actually gets cheaper every year, and radically so. One of the things when I led the NAACP and we were dealing with disasters like Hurricane Katrina, and then the hurricane that went through Galveston, and my first day on the job was that one, and then the 55 tornadoes that hit Tuscaloosa. Biggest one was 1.5 miles wide at the base, moved 60 miles per hour. And there were a lot of groups that felt uncomfortable talking about the things that we're talking about here. They just, but when you lead an organization, whether it's NAACP or Sierra Club, that is literally bottom up, that is neighbors banding together, try to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice, try to make sure that the garden is preserved for all of us, and this planet remains habitable for humanity. You're obligated to just shoot straight with people about what we can all do to have this happen less, to worry less for our children and our grandchildren, to be able to assure our grandchildren that they can look forward to having grandchildren. Because they listen to all of this. Those kids who are going back to school today, been out of school for 3 weeks, made them go into new schools. They're absorbing all of this. Yeah, and they're trying to figure out how to make new friends at school today, in many parts of this community. But I guarantee you in the back of their head, they're just like my little 12-year-old boy at home when he was 9. Didn't want to talk about how to make, how babies were made, wanted to have a real conversation about whether he should plan to have one because the garden's on fire. And so I'm here today to really to say, thank you to this congregation. Thank you to the NAACP and all the great organizations here. Thank you to the local Sierra Club for standing up and hanging together as neighbors. Thank you to you, Pastor, for just being such a stalwart, trying to hold folks together who are really having profound existential worries and conversations at home. And to also say to the activists in this community who have worked so long to just make sure that the local communities do their part to shift the way that we're powered away from those sources of energy that kill the garden towards ones that will help us sustain it, away from the ones, if you will, that God gave us a limited supply of, like trees and oil and coal, to the ones that God gave us an unlimited supply of, like wind and solar. To also say that that's part of the formula for making sure that people can afford to stay in their community by keeping power prices stable and even, if we can, getting them down. Thank you. And Sierra Club is with you. And this is a long fight. But as I told my son when he came to me wanting to know essentially if humanity was on the brink, I said, son, when I was a kid, we were worried about nuclear destruction. When I was a kid, we thought the bald eagle was going to go extinct with a bunch of other raptors because of DDT. And we figured it out. We as humanity, we got a lot of faults, but we also have some blessings, and one of them is that we figure it out. And so it does my heart good to see so many neighbors on this weekday morning, shoulder to shoulder, and know that that's evidence of the strength of this community and its resolve to figure it out on behalf of the entire community. Altadena is like, what a beautiful garden. What a beautiful place. And thank you all for hanging together, because figuring it out here is going to help other people figure it out elsewhere. And we're all in this moment together. God bless you.
Questions? Raise your hand, and I think we have a mic that can go around. There we go.
Pastor.
Hi, my name is Danny Parker, and my question and concern is that a number of predators have entered this community, and without mentioning any names, but they've come in a number of forms, from those offering to do some of the work to repair this community, to rebuild it ultimately in the form of contractors. More recently and somewhat more visibly, there have been a number of law firms coming in from out of town and out of state. And part of the concern is dollars that would be circulated or not within a community are part of a vital part of the economic health of a community. Do you have any insight from your amazing roles as president of the National NAACP and of the Sierra Club of ways to ensure or incent, as the case may be, to get some of these out-of-area entities, is the politest term I can muster, to get them to reinvest in this community, to keep dollars in this community so Altadena can rebuild Altadena, and to ensure the long-term sustainable economic health of this greater community?
Well, first of all, what First AME is doing as far as holding workshops for community members to help folks just understand this moment, what their options are, how you hold on to your property, how do you rebuild, how do you, get a construction loan, all the things you'll suddenly have to learn when you've inherited home from your parents and it never was even a thought about building another one, is a powerful first step. Things that, like what Attorney Ludd has done for this congregation and this community is critical. So I think there's a lot of good that's already happening. At the same time, folks have to understand that vulture capitalism is a thing. I can remember talking to the manager of McDonald's in Tuscaloosa just 2 days after it was waylaid by 55 tornadoes. And I said, what's on your mind? And he said, what's on my mind is that right now my workers commute from 2 miles away. And if you look at the pattern where these tornadoes hit, he said, I don't know what it is about tornadoes. It seemed to always hit poor people first. He said, and all these developers, he said, are in my McDonald's 2 days later talking about what they're going to do with that property. Okay? So we've got to think about the homeowners, you've got to think about the renters, you've got to think about the people who are here. And the community's got to hang tough because it's going to be exhausting. To make sure that we know everybody who's here and that in the plan there's a place for everybody that's here. That's a place of dignity, that's a place that they want. And if a community's strong, then that community will be able to quickly discern who's a vulture and just needs to be pushed away. And if there's somebody who can really help, who might be new and showed up, might be an angel in disguise, but that'll be based on your criteria. You know what I'm saying? That'll be based on your collectively working together to really define what you need because, it's just like cleanup, right? There might be certain capacity in the community and there's probably more that's needed, right? But there's also people who take advantage of folks. And the only way that a community, that individuals and families in crisis can really discern well about what's a good deal and what's a bad deal is when they're in communication with their neighbors and the community's hanging strong. And that's why the work that this congregation is doing, the other congregations are doing is so important.
Hello, Lauren Corey. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Truly appreciate it. I'm wondering if this can be an actual turning point for building code. So that it doesn't become build back faster and just get a house up for people, but instead pause and take time to do it right. Passivehouse.com, that sort of thing. And I wanted to ask you, do you have any experience in other cities actually after a devastation taking the time to do it right? Or have you heard of any that are beginning to do it right?
Well, for that, I'm going to ask actually Morgan to come up for a second, and Jenny, if you have thoughts as well about because Jenny's dealing with the rest of California. What I would say is this, the Los Angeles County does have some of the best home hardening for new homes. The question, what this shows, is that there's retrofitting that must be done to existing homes. And yes, there are definitely communities that have, if you will, built back better. That's possible. And there are communities that are thriving. My sister lives in the Oakland Hills, which went through a horrible fire 20, 30 years ago. And folks, I can tell you, like that community, you would forget. But you can look and see that the homes were built differently than you remember. I want to bring Morgan up, who's our leader in Los Angeles County, talk about the state of that conversation.
Thank you, Ben. And honestly, I think the best thing I can say is that we are not kind of ready to have the authoritative Sierra Club stance on this because it's so complicated. The couple things I will say, like Ben mentioned, LA County and the state of California already has very, very good codes for new construction, right? Some of the best in the country. And we celebrate that. We think it's important. We think it's important that we're proud of that. There's probably I actually know there's several people in the room who know more about than I will. So I want to call out John Munson, who is in the back, who's the volunteer chair of our Forest Committee, former Pasadena resident. John's been doing just the heroes work on combing through both Sierra Club policy, existing policy and recommendations, and formulating that. So please encourage you all to talk to John. The other thing I want to say is that home hardening is one part of it. And I think you all know this at least as well as I do. But there's individual homes, there's neighborhood organization and defensible space at the neighborhood level, and then there's general forest management and field management. All three of those things are things that are really important to look at. And again, we're not starting from scratch. We have a good foundation as Sierra Club policy, but it doesn't mean that building things back better is actually in some ways easier than what do we do to safeguard the communities to the east of us and to the west of us that didn't burn but are still vulnerable to the next wind event coming down the canyons. I think those are actually some of the trickier problems. So it's a very partial answer, but I think, you know, we'll have time to mingle, and it's a great conversation. So.
Yeah, thanks. Morgan encapsulated that pretty well, but the one thing I want to share is that in the coming months, thinking from the state administrative and legislative perspective, we're going to be seeing a lot of proposals and a lot of conversations happening about what happens with CEQA, what happens with the Coastal Act, what are we doing to accelerate rebuilding, and there will be a lot, I mean, similar to the points that were raised earlier, a lot of folks who are predatory and engaging in those conversations. And so plugging into advocacy groups, plugging into your communities to be vigilant about how those conversations are happening. I think from what I'm seeing in the work I do to support Sierra Club California, they're just starting. They're happening as folks talk about Governor Newsom's proposed budget. They're talking about proposals in the legislature to get new bills out around this. So I think remaining extremely vigilant of those conversations is going to be important, because they will set a precedent for how we're going to respond to these types of incidents in the future, which will only become more frequent, more impactful to communities. So thanks everyone for being in partnership in our journey to engage in those spaces together.
I think that question kind of stole my thunder. I'm Ryan from the Star News, Ryan Carter from the Pasadena Star News. Maybe just pivoting off the question a little bit, what can the city of Pasadena do to preserve its 100% goal in light of all this? You know, what is it that you're actually asking the city to do? And if I could just add a real quick second parter, speaking of the environment, as you know, there are materials being trucked over 3-4 cities to the east of here, and I'm just kind of wondering if there's any reaction to that today as you see this news play out. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The city does have a goal of 100% carbon-free electric power by 2030, and actually tomorrow is the second anniversary of the climate emergency resolution, which was unanimously passed by the City Council. As with everything, policy is one thing, implementation is another. So what the city can do is commit itself and continually commit itself to achieve that goal. We were going to have Pasadena Water and Power here. Unfortunately, I got a call late last night. The general manager of Pasadena Water and Power's father passed away, and he was wanting to come here. He believed so much in this goal that he wanted to be here today, despite his father's death. And I told him, no, you can't do that. You know, you need to go. But I think the city is supporting the goal, but it's going to take change. We are already right now in Pasadena, if we do nothing else, because the city has responded to the public pressure, by 2030, we will be at between 80 and 85% carbon-free electric power, which is by far and away the best of any place in the state. And that's great, but it's not 100%. So we have to do more. We have to at least double and probably triple the amount of rooftop solar in Pasadena. The city has to make it easy. Sam Burnt here, who was was really the principal author of the climate emergency resolution. Sam has been instrumental in the technical aspects. He's a system software engineer at JPL. There's a lot of technical issues that need to be explored, and I can tell you, because of people like you, Pasadena Water and Power takes Sam seriously when he speaks. So it's a combination of the city just continuing to work on the goal and you staying on top of this, continuing to express to the elected city leadership that you care about climate change. It's not some theoretical thing anymore. It hit us. It hit us really hard. It's now. So I think the city needs to really commit to rooftop solar. We have a new director of public buildings here, the Public Works. We wrote him a letter a month ago. He doesn't bother to answer it. You know, it's our public buildings need, any new public building, the library, we're going to spend $190 million on a new rebuilt public library, and it has no plan for solar. This has to change. We need to change our ways of doing things. And that's not going to happen unless people like you keep on. And that's why it's so important that we have the Sierra Club here, because it's a national presence and it makes a big difference. The City Council hears you. We just have to keep making the issue important.
And just any follow-up to the news about the trucking of the materials to the east?
I don't know a whole lot about it. I saw it on the news last night, but I think we're just moving the issue from one area to another area and exposing more people to the situation. People mean children, families. I think we need to really speak up about that. Somebody said someone signed it. We need to make sure we hold that person accountable and make sure we figure out a way to stop that type of transportation of debris in our communities. It needs to go somewhere that it can be properly processed, not in our backyards.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. Elizabeth Pomeroy was on the school board. Altadena is county government. So I wonder, what is the status of the county as far as policy or implementing any such goal as this 2030 goal?
Morgan?
I know a little bit about it.
Who do we look at?
Let me just give a bit of information. The county is actually good because LA County has the Clean Power Aggregator, the Clean Power Alliance, which offers to every city in the county and unincorporated areas the option of going 100% carbon-free electric power. And many cities have opted for a 100% default. So for example, Claremont. If you live in Claremont, unless you opt out, you have 100% carbon-free electric power. So that's a good thing. I think that the Altadena Town Council, I think that Altadena is covered by that. I think it is covered by the default arrangement for 100% clean power. In Pasadena, we own our own utility company, as you know, as a city leader. You know that. The good thing about our example is there are 2,000 publicly owned utilities in the United States, many of them in California, Los Angeles, for example, Glendale, Sacramento. If we can do this in Pasadena, we can set an example for utility companies all over the country. I'm sorry, Morgan, I just had to add that.
No, thank you. Thank you. Cynthia, you are an incredible resource for this community because you're able to speak to this so authoritatively. I want to call up our Sierra Club campaigner, Julia Dowell, who is our statewide electric sector campaigner. And so Julia is going to talk a little bit about our neighbors in LADWP, as well as the state laws that govern electricity procurement in the unincorporated areas. So thank you for jumping in.
Hi everyone, and thank you for the question. So statewide, when we turn on our lights, 37% of our electricity still comes from fossil gas plants. The state does have a goal of reaching 100% clean energy by 2045. Pasadena's goal, of course, is 2030. And LADWP, neighbor of Pasadena, they have a goal of reaching 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035. So we have all of these competing timelines, and I think that there's something to be said about these disasters happening right now and how we need to probably ramp up, push up our timelines. Also, I just want to, plug that transitioning these gas plants to replace them with clean, renewable energy is going to be critical to preventing disasters like this, to fighting the climate crisis. So the more we can push the state and our local government agencies to hurry up and also make goals that are more timely and more in line with what we're seeing happening at the local level, that's what we're really going to need to be doing. And yeah, happy to talk to folks afterwards about the work we're doing to transition away from gas plants to clean energy resources. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Good morning.
Hold on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Richter. Thank you all so much for being here. I wanted to come because my work is with so-called impact investors. Those are investors who assemble and invest capital, so provide financing in ways that respond to community needs with community objectives. And you often never hear this term, impact investing, or know that there's any kind of an opposite to vulture capitalism. And Ben, I'm particularly happy to be here this morning because I know that the NAACP has been involved in impact investing. I know the Sierra Club is involved in that, and I know that in between those two, you were personally. And so it's such a powerful resource. And what I have been involved with since the fires, and I am a neighbor, I had to evacuate, but in terms of my day job, is that the big foundations in Los Angeles, you know, the multi-billion-dollar and multi-million-dollar foundations, they're all talking about, we want to assemble capital to help the residents of Altadena and affected areas in Pasadena to be able to come back in ways that are charted by community residents. And some of the challenges that I think they're having are not necessarily knowing how to connect. And so I'm so grateful to be here this morning and know, Reverend Campbell, that you're continuing in this effort, that we can be in touch with you and the 26 other faith-based institutions so that we can find the ways to work together and have this flexible capital as opposed to predatory sources of financing be a resource. And I think it'll be a resource for helping to retool when folks need to harden an existing home. But even in those situations where somebody might need to sell their home, to be able to buy that home so that it can be held into some kind of a pool for another community-based buyer to come in. So we have a chance of preserving the community as it's been. Thank you.
I certainly hope that you and Pastor Kimmel will talk after this. California Wellness Foundation went, I believe, to 100% impact investing just in the last year. And, you know, the longtime president was a black Californian, but I know had a great concern about moments like this. So that's good to hear. It's good to hear. It's a hopeful sign. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a quick question. You know, there's so much pressure right now to rebuild as quickly as possible, which I understand given the timelines, insurance, you know, people need to get back in their homes. However, I know the building code too, and some of the folks in the room a couple years ago were really pushing to, you know, transition to fossil-free homes sooner in California. And people, you know, early adopters are already doing it. Other parts of the world, induction stove technology, people understand it. But a lot of folks in this community don't know what a heat pump is, don't know what an induction stove is, and they're overwhelmed with so many different things right now that, you know, they're going to come to a point where they're going to be making that decision, and once you've made that decision, you're baked in, and we're going to entrench ourselves into more fossil fuel use in these homes, and also, you know, the impact of that cost burden versus if you make this transition now, this will be more affordable for you over the long term. So I'm wondering how Sierra Club and, you know, other actors, impact investors, for example, can help support the community, making sure they can make an informed decision as we move forward, and we're not kind of missing that opportunity.
We have resources nationally on our website, and there's organizations like Rewiring America that have good product guides. And it's important. I don't know, Morgan, there's anything that you want to add? It's about locally. As Morgan comes up, what I would say is, you know, as a home builder and somebody who's remodeled homes and built homes and used to restore tenements in Harlem, this is the time to be thinking about it, right? When you have that old gas water heater and you want to change it to an electrical one in your house, then you got to put in a new circuit and all that. But when you're building from the bottom up, you can build it all in. And at the point of new construction, the price is often marginal, and the long-term savings is very real. So yeah, I think it's wise to be intentional. But Morgan, you want to talk about resources for folks?
Yeah,
I think
thanks.
yeah.
I was hoping that you might introduce yourself as part of your question, but Wes Reitman is head of Active San Gabriel Valley. Sierra Club works with Wes and a number of coalition partners to elevate the concerns that we're learning around indoor air quality caused by the burning of fossil fuels, burning of gas in our homes, which is, as we are all more concerned about the smoke damage and what's in the smoke and the toxic air quality, I think it's a great moment to be talking about how long-term we want our indoor air quality to be really good, and that means, along with the economic arguments, now is the time to find those resources. So the Sierra Club is absolutely a resource, both for informing individual consumers and homeowners, but we also work with the Air Quality Management District and LA County and LA City to help elevate those standards for all electric, for clean construction. I feel like I almost want to turn it back to you and just say, can you close us out on this one with a plug for what your organization is doing and how people can benefit from your work?
Yeah, I think the scale of the issue here is so great that we're one of many small organizations that are doing what we can to support. I think we have to continue to work collectively, and maybe the question is more for us to see what other resources, if there are other national nonprofits or other groups that are really focused on the building decarbonization, and maybe they can assign a campaigner to be here for 2 years to just work on educating the community, really work and with stakeholders, because I think all of us understand how important this is, but everyone is grappling with so much at once, and my fear is it's going to fall through the cracks, because I know organizationally, we're now dealing with just mayhem at the federal level. We just received a community change grant with partners, and it was supposed to do some of this work, and now we're potentially going to have to lay off 7 staff who were just hired a month ago. So there's a lot at once, and I think we're looking to see how we can better support one another.
Well, that's, I'm sure Morgan and Jenny will be thinking about how do we activate our volunteer leaders to be resources for neighbors. So I think that's a good flag, and let us take it back and figure out how we can be helpful, because we have a lot of that information, and there's ways, I think, to connect, make sure people are making those good decisions. You have the mic, so I'm going to go to you, and then I'll come to you just because she has the mic. She'll have to pass it to you. So we'll go next. Yeah.
Hi, Laura Fleming. I'm with the Environmental Advisory Commission, City of Pasadena, and Environmental Sustainability Manager at Polytechnic School. To piggyback on this, I was going to bring up the same thing. I'm from Kansas, and Greensburg, Kansas, as many of you know, was decimated by a tornado in 2007. Forward-thinking mayor, all publicly funded buildings had to be platinum LEED certified. However, you've got a lot of businesses and you have a lot of homes that had to rebuild, and it seemed to be integral in making sure that they put together all those resources for people to educate them, even though, as you said at the beginning, it may be more expensive, but long term, much less. And so this idea of kind of a hub for educating the community for all these various things, I think really makes sense as we move forward.
Oh, it's a great idea. To the leader of the NAACP here.
I'm not the leader of the NAACP.
You are.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you, Ben, for seeing us. And thank you for focusing on the quality of life in our community, restoring good health to our community, this beautiful garden that God has provided for us. We need to do everything we can to preserve it and to improve it. Now, I have a question that's not necessarily related to climate change, but that is, I just would like your opinion, if you can offer an opinion, about the organizations and individuals who are coming in, encouraging people to join lawsuits. And this started happening the first few days after our homes were burned. Is that something we should, I know we should look at it carefully, but should we be thinking about, joining lawsuits, mass lawsuits at this point?
I think it's really important that folks evaluate them as a community, in organizations, part of congregations. I know Attorney Ludd has been running workshops for this congregation. Attorney Ludd, do you have any perspectives on that?
Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Ludd. I'm a member here at First AME. I'm also an attorney along with my wife at Ludd & Ludd here in Pasadena. We've been addressing just this issue. We saw the same thing a few days after the fire. I think I was down at City Hall, and they were already announcing a town hall. It seemed to be a town hall that was run by a government, but it was in the bottom right-hand corner, it was a law firm. So these law firms are sensing opportunity here in our community, not necessarily because of the opportunity to provide information to our constituents, but the opportunity to make attorneys' fees. And that's what it's really about. What we've been advising community members, your immediate needs are the needs that you've already paid for. Insurance, right? You pay for your insurance, that's a policy, it's a contract. FEMA, you pay for that with taxes. Those are immediate pots of money and things that are owed to you. There's really no rush at this point to join a lawsuit. What we've been doing as members of this community, we've been vetting partners. We're gonna need partners, right? With regard to bringing forward these suits. We've been vetting them. We've been asking for tangibles as far as what they can provide us in the long term so that we can identify a partner that's trustworthy. And I think that we're going to be providing more information to individuals who are members of our community with regard to that. So what I would say is there is no rush. You can vet. We're here as a resource. So if you have questions about third-party lawsuits, you can contact us. But we've been in the background making efforts to identify individuals that we can partner with so we can say, these are trusted individuals that have demonstrated some tangible things for our community for the long run.
We have time for one more question. Why don't we do two? Because we got her. We'll do these two. Oh, we'll do three, 4. Can we just get like 2 at a time, and we'll answer 2 sets of questions.
I'll be fast. Alan Bear, just following up on the lawsuit thing. If it's found that something like SC&E power lines played a factor and lawsuits and things get involved, or maybe just anyway, we talked earlier about the value of solar renewable energy being less expensive. Altadena, one of the wonderful things it has is trees, lots of trees, make it a lot of roofs therefore shady. SC&E worked very hard to make it illegal to have community solar in the state. Could one of the things Altadena push for be an allowance from SCE to build community solar to provide for people in this area and maybe help finance it as we rebuild locally? Just a question.
It's a very good thought. Let's take the next comment. Address these two and then we'll address these.
Good morning, Elise Mallory, and I am with the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority as well as the NAACP.
That would be Kamala Harris's sorority.
Good Trouble Alliance. And I actually attended a workshop a couple weeks ago with the Beverly Hills Bar Association, and what I want to do is expand on what Attorney Ludd just said. The workshop, and I have very good notes if anybody wants them, but what they did highlight, because this is a firm, and these are people that deal with insurance, and they said 90% of what you need done will be handled via your insurance company. And it's imperative that you do work with your insurance company first. All these people that are out here, we're doing this, we're doing that, they're going to take 30% of your money. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be anything. So by working with your insurance company as opposed to filing the lawsuit, you are not cutting yourself off from your insurance company and the insurance you've paid for all these years. So as Attorney Ludd said, it was highly recommended, work with your insurance company. What they don't cover, you talk to FEMA. When you still have a gap, because our community is going to have a gap of underinsured, there are those that are uninsured. And then we also are going to have chain of title issues that are going to have to be resolved that might cause property taxes. The things you cannot get covered. Then you start looking at what are my other options.
I can just wait for the mic though.
Yes, and in fact, we're going to come to you second, because just the mic then get to her first, and we're going to come down there. Sir, could you hand the mic to that lady right there, please, and then we'll bring it down here.
Sorry.
Just to make it.
Latifah Doxey, former Altadena resident for 40 years. Now I'm a Pasadena resident, and before that I was a child resident for a few years. But anyway, I'm wondering, we're talking about deadlines and timelines, and there's so much time that it takes to get things done in Pasadena, I know for sure. I've lived in the county. The county is a little better because they seem to not be so slow. I understand being safe and making sure everything is okay. But there's so many human resources that we're not even talking about. We're talking about all this, fancy dancy stuff, but what about people that can't get stuff done because there's not enough people to do the job? And that comes back to probably education and all that other kind of stuff. But those of us sitting here, we have a little more history in, what's going on. But what about young people who are trying to get into these things they're gonna be here, we're gonna be gone. Okay, in 25 years, most of us be gone. Or 30 years, let's just make it further out. Let's keep going out, keep going out. But I know what I'm talking about because it takes so long to get anything done. I mean, we've been building, we're actually in the middle of renovation. So we're really in a tough pickle. But the thing is that there's like 3 or 4 people to do a job that should have like maybe 10 or 20 people, so people can speed on through their job and not linger and have all these other kinds of issues come up because there's lack of people. Human resources, what's the problem with that? That's what we don't have enough of. A computer can't come to my house and tell me what to do in certain areas. It can't go down the steps without a handle or something. But a person can. A person with a body and legs and arms can go down and take care of things, but not that computer. So let's think about working with the kids that are coming out of school that might be interested in this kind of stuff and turn it around. And like I said, they're going to be living here when we're all dead and gone.
Yeah. No, that's very wise. And we're going to bring the mic down. You had a couple important things there. One is, again, right now it's so important that the community hang together, come together, people support each other, people advise each other, they learn from each other, you put arms around folks. And absolutely, it's also a time, frankly, throughout this country, there is a shortage of people in the building trades. They are jobs that pay very well with no college degree and no college debt. You can go through an apprenticeship program. So it's also a time to be having conversations like that with our young people about opportunities that can really allow them to flourish and are underscored by crises like this one.
Not to mention a lot of the immigrants that fulfill those jobs. Suzanne York, I'm also a member of the Environmental Advisory Commission in Pasadena. My question to all of you, by the way, I'm so humbled and inspired. Thank you so much for all your incredible ideas and bringing us all together as a community. There's so many powerful resources in this room right now. It's just very, very inspiring. My question has to do with, it feels to me, I've been to, because of the difference of Altadena being a county, Pasadena being its own city, there seems to be a slight disconnect of gathering all those resources in one space. Some people, I've been to so many meetings and it's been suggested that we need someone like a Peter Uberoth to, so my question is, do you feel the same way, and would you be that person? or do you have some ideas, or Cynthia, or any of these people? Yes, I volunteer any one of you. I think it's such a good idea. I don't know, has anybody else experienced this? People, there's not like one main, venue to.
Well, Suzanne, as always, you asked really good questions. I think it would be great. I don't know how we'll have to think about that. Yeah. Maybe we'll get him away from the Sierra Club, but I don't think so. I think he likes his job, and they like him being in that job. I have to close this out because I know Ben has to catch a plane, and we all have things to do, places to go. But like Suzanne said, this is a tremendous gathering of people, and that alone is so encouraging. Thank you all for coming. I know, it's a weekday. One of the Sierra Club members he and his wife have traveled from Thousand Oaks just for this meeting, which is really wonderful. George Vine. Danny? Oh, yes, talk about the vigil. Yeah, okay, how can I forget that? Pasadena 100, I also encourage you all, if you're not already a member, please join Pasadena 100. It is a coalition of 22 nonprofit, nonpartisan organizations. We're all volunteers, and it's been going on for 2 years, thanks to people like Sam and so many of you. Claudia is also very active, and she's going to hand out flyers. Tomorrow we have a vigil, which is, and Danny, I'm going to get you. The vigil is commemorating the 2nd anniversary of the Pasadena Climate Emergency Resolution, which set our goal of 100% carbon-free electric power. Please join Pasadena 100 there. It will be a good event. We've got everybody from Edgar McGregor, the hero, the weather hero, who warned so many people and saved so many lives. We've got the Rose Queen, who's coming, and she's an impressive speaker. We've got Pastor Campbell, who's doing the invocation, and I'm so grateful because I know he is so busy, but he's taking out time to do this. So please come 6 o'clock tomorrow evening in front of City Hall. It's outside, so wear warm clothes. It won't be long. It'll be an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. But we need you there. We need to keep showing the City Council and Pasadena Water and Power that we care about climate change, and we want our city to achieve a 100% carbon-free goal by 2030. So I want to thank Danny. Yes.
Can you make a quick statement about the impact of rates? That it is not a choice between a clean, habitable planet and utility rates.
Shall I? Or
Yes. And this is what I said in the beginning. And I just want to be clear. When we're talking about clean energy tomorrow, what we're also talking about is ensuring that this community is plugged in to what is the cheapest and most resilient form of power. And that is critical. When people's rates surge because we're addicted to fossil fuel, it's being exported, prices are going up. When the rates surge like they did in West Virginia, suddenly folks are wondering if they can stay in their home. And so clean energy, frankly, means the cheapest form of energy, the most resilient form of energy, and the one, because we are in a church that God gave us an unlimited supply of. And that's where we need to head. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ben and the Sierra Club for coming here. It's quite an investment of time on their part, and it means so much that they're here. And I want to also thank Pastor Campbell. For those of you who don't know him, there are a number of congregants here from the church. Thank you for coming. So I think that's about it, but let's end with a round of applause for Ben.